It's Saturday, the 11th of October, and the latest of my October updates for the 2026 NFL draft is what's coming up in this NFXL podcast with myself, Andy XL. This one is going to look at what the tight end picture looks like. Now, in my first piece, I said that, and it's still true, obviously, that a total of 51 tight ends have been taken in the first four rounds of drafts this decade. That's an average of 8.5 in the first four rounds, so that's really would make up an average draft. Um, and this still does not look like a great class after the opening month of the college season. I could only find five decent candidates prior to the start of the season, um, and two of those are off to a quiet start. But there are two who are looking to move past them as they have made good starts. So between 5 and 7 is all I can find, and if the average is 8, then really we are struggling. But one guy has appeared and moved up from round 2 to round 1, and that's my top ranked guy originally, and he still is. It's Kenyon Sadiq, the junior at Oregon. Um, Now he's following up on a 308 receiving yard and two touchdown season for the Ducks last in 2024. So it wasn't great last season in terms of production. And I said he needed to improve on that whilst being effective as a blocking tight end. Um, but let's see what he's done. Now, when you watch his 2024 highlights, which, as I've started taking more attention to film now as we get closer to the draft, it's full of short passes to the flat, plenty of screens, and he has the occasional deep shot because he does have some speed, decent speed, in fact. That reinforces that he's pretty much a receiving tight end only, though. No sign of blocking. I don't see him as ever being much help in that regard. But he's a very fine receiving tight end whose speed is his best asset. He's going to run about a 455, 450, low 450s maybe, which is pretty good for a tight end. And he has good hands. So far this season, he's got 210 yards and three touchdowns in 5 games. So he's already exceeded his touchdown total from last season, and he's within 100 yards of what he did last season in just 5 games. So he's having a very good year, and that's pushed him up, probably clear of the pack now as the number one candidate and as a potential round 1 guy now, whereas he was in round 2 for me at the beginning of the season. Still in round 2 and still second on my list is Max Clare, another junior, this time Ohio State. He was at Purdue before he joined the Buckeyes for this season. Now, his video shows a polished route runner with bucket-like hands and great ability. If you get it anywhere near him, he'll catch it. He does not have the speed of Sadiq, and he's off to a quiet start in his first season as a Buckeye, with just 11 catches and 137 yards for a touchdown. But he still looks like a reasonable prospect. Production isn't everything for these guys coming out of college, because quite often that scheme, right? And if you have to remember, he's at Ohio State, where he's competing with two very good wide receivers there for their share of the pie. So he's probably not a Tyler Warren Brock Bowers, and neither is Kenyon Sadiq. Let's talk about him. I don't think he's a Brock Bowers, but he's not as far off doing what Tyler Warren did. So, bear that in mind. But Clare probably isn't in that sort of level. So I've got him as a round 2 guy currently. Still at number 3 and still in round 3 is Eli Stowers, the junior at Vanderbilt. Now, he only had one full season at the position. Um, you know, and that's because he converted from being a quarterback while he was at Texas A&M. Then he transferred to Mexico State, so he's had an interesting path to becoming a tight end. But with only one full, very productive season behind him, where he showed rapid development, and he's one of these that he's a former athlete, high jumper. He could do anything this season. So, what has he done? And let's have a look at this film. He's another receiver type tight end who is really good after the catch, showing surprising elusiveness and power to make the most of the catches he makes. And already he's got 323 yards and two touchdowns in 6 games this season. Excuse me. So he's certainly being productive this season. Um, he's on course to match what he did last season, and if he does, then he's certainly going to push himself up to challenge Claire at least for being the second tight end taken, and that could get him into round two. But right now, I've still got him in round three. Right, moving up one spot from 5 to 4, and still in the third round third round as I have him is Jack Endries, a junior now at Texas, having been at Cal before. He's got off to a nice start for Texas with 108 yards and a pair of touchdowns in 5 games. That's nice without being spectacular. And virtually all of that came in his first 2 games. He's only had 6 yards in the last 3 games. He's another that shapes like he shapes like a classic possession stroke safety net tight end rather than a spectacular one. Think Pat Frymouth, and you're probably in that sort of looking at what he's going to do production wise. So nothing spectacular there, and that's probably they haven't done nothing in the last 3 games. He needs to start picking his production up again if he's going to maintain that day 2 pick status. Dropping one from 4 to 5 and therefore out of round 3 and into day 3 is Oscar Delp, a senior at Georgia. He's had just 4 catches for 87 yards this season, so that's hardly delivering on the promise he's shown before. So more than that's really what I asked him to do when I was in my pre-season blurb. I said 2025 is the time to deliver on the promise shown. Well, he isn't so far. So more is needed to get him moving back up draft boards because he's on the slide at the moment. So they were the 5 I added originally, and they pretty much haven't changed order, changed position in terms of where they might go in the draft a bit, but haven't changed their rankings. But 2 guys that are sort of just on the outside at the moment, but making a move, and they'll certainly try and move up further are the ones I'm going to talk about now. Firstly, Joe Royer, a senior at Cincinnati. He did very little in 3 seasons at Ohio State before moving for his junior year to Cincy, where he put up 521 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's another good route runner who knows how to find spacing zones and make all the catches you would expect him to make. Another on film that looks reliable rather than outstanding, but reliable is pretty much what you want from a tight end, and he has made a bright start to 2025 with 182 yards and 3 touchdowns already. And the second one is Michael Trigg, another senior, this time at Baylor. A tight end that chooses to wear number 1 clearly has confidence in themselves, and both are true of Trigg, who has height and agility to make him another fine receiving tight end in this class. He made little impact firstly at USC and then in 2 seasons at Ole Miss before moving to Baylor, where he had 395 yards and 3 touchdowns as a junior, and he's off to a fine start to his senior year with a very fine start with 439 yards and 4 touchdowns. He and Royer could be set to move past the likes of Endries and Delp if they continue to deliver better numbers in 2025. And, they're certainly they're the ones grabbing the attention at the moment. So, like I said, I didn't expect this to be a long piece on tight ends because it doesn't look a great class, certainly in terms of depth. So that wraps up tight ends for me. Now, my next draft related piece will be the far less glamorous but nevertheless important O linemen, where I basically put all the O linemen in one category. I don't split them into centres, guards, and offensive tackles. I will split them up within that piece, but they're covered in one piece. So that'll be my next piece related to the draft. So look out for that because, like I've said before, if you follow what I think is going to happen regarding who goes where in the draft, not to which team, but roughly what area of the draft or where they're likely to go, I will be more accurate than anybody else you'll find out there. I'm very confident in saying that. And that's not a blag because I don't blag. So, right, that's it draft wise. My next pod is going to be part 2 of my week 6 preview, which will, if I can squeeze it all into one piece, I'll do all the remaining 13 games in one piece. All right, see you soon.